They told you civilization began in Greece. That philosophy was born in Europe. That greatness had a color and it wasn't black. But what if everything you were taught was a carefully curated myth? What if the real origin of black people isn't just a footnote in history, but the foundation of it? What if the story of Africa is not one of darkness and despair, but of brilliance, innovation, and divine legacy? Because before the pyramids of Giza amazed the world, there were cities in Africa that touched the stars. Before Europe dreamed of democracy, African kings ruled vast, complex societies guided by law, science, and spirit. Let's start at the beginning. Not the colonial beginning, but the true beginning, according to the Bible. After the Great Flood, humanity descended from three sons of Noah, Shem, Japheth, and Ham, whose name in Hebrew is often translated as hot or burned, is traditionally associated with the peoples of Africa. His sons, Cush, Misraim, Put, and Canaan became the forefathers of nations that shaped the ancient world. Cush, the builder of the mighty kingdom of Cush, located in what is now Sudan. Misraim, the progenitor of Egypt, is the same Egypt, whose pyramids, temples, and philosophy would inspire the world. Put, associated with the peoples of North Africa and Libya. Canaan, whose descendants settled parts of the Levant in Genesis 10. Often referred to as the Table of Nations, these names aren't just biblical artifacts, they're cultural roadmaps. So why is Ham's lineage so overlooked? Talk about Egypt today, it's often portrayed as Mediterranean or even vaguely Middle Eastern. But Greek historians, Herodotus, often called the father of history, described Egyptians as having dark skin and woolly hair. In his histories written in the 5th century BCE, Herodotus openly identifies the Egyptians as people of African descent. Even Aristotle, the great Greek philosopher, noted the differences between Greeks and Egyptians in appearance and customs. Why? Do modern textbooks ignore this? Is it too uncomfortable to admit that one of the greatest civilizations in human history was black? From the construction of pyramids with mathematical precision to advanced medicine, astronomy, and centralized government. Egypt wasn't just African, it was brilliantly African, and Egypt was not alone. Long before colonizers carved up the continent with red ink on European maps, Africa was home to empires that rivaled and often surpassed their European counterparts. Aksum, a Christian empire in what is now Ethiopia, with towering obelisks and global trade routes as early as the 1st century CE. Mali, the empire of Mansa Musa, is the richest man to ever live, who flooded Cairo with so much gold during his pilgrimage that he crashed the local economy. Great Zimbabwe, a massive stone city built without mortar, whose towering walls and complex architecture stunned even the Portuguese who first encountered them. And yet, history classes skim past all of this. Why? Let's go deeper. Texts, like the Book of Jubilees, an ancient Jewish religious work, reinforce the territorial identities of Noah's sons and their descendants. Ham's people were allotted the continent of African, intentionally, divinely, and proudly. But colonial interpretations of Scripture twisted this. The so-called Curse of Ham, a single passage in Genesis 9, was weaponized to justify slavery, stripping generations of black people of their heritage and dignity. But here's the truth. The curse wasn't on Ham. It was on Canaan, his youngest son, due to a personal incident with Noah, and even then, it had nothing to do with race. Religious scholars like Dr. Kane Hopefelder and biblical historians have long argued that this misinterpretation was deliberate, crafted to give divine cover to an economic machine built on the backs of stolen Africans. How much of our understanding of history is based not on facts, but on propaganda? African history wasn't just written in books, it was sung in oral tradition. The griots of West Africa preserved dynastic records, wars, migrations, and philosophies through storytelling. They told of empires stretching from Senegal to the Nile, of queens who ruled empires with wisdom and might, of scholars in Timbuktu who studied astronomy, medicine, and law centuries before the Renaissance. Did you know Timbuktu's University of Sankar had thousands of manuscripts that predate Oxford? Why are these achievements erased? And then came the rupture. The transatlantic slave trade shattered these civilizations, trafficking over 12 million Africans into the Americas. But those stolen didn't come from a dark continent. They came from organized societies. They brought with them ironworking, agricultural knowledge, spiritual systems, music, and resistance. And despite the centuries of dehumanization, the legacy of black brilliance endured hidden in plain sight. In the blues and gospel, in language and food, in protest and perseverance. So we ask again, why don't they teach this? Why do curriculums skip over thousands of years of African innovation? Why are black children taught their history starts with chains? The truth is uncomfortable. Because if black people understood the fullness of their heritage, if the world truly reckoned with Africa's central role in human civilization, it would dismantle too many myths. And myths, after all, are powerful tools of control. But that's changing. Thanks to scholars like Cheikh Anta Diop, who used carbon dating and linguistic evidence to prove the African roots of Egypt. Ivan van Sertima, author of They Came Before Columbus, who explored African transoceanic contact. Dr. Yosef Ben Jakanen, who taught African history from an African perspective. And now you. By watching this, by questioning what you've been told, by seeking more, you are part of the awakening. Until the lion tells the story, the hunter will always be the hero. African proverb: if this video opened your eyes, share it. Drop a comment on what they never taught you. Because the origin of black people is not tragedy, it's triumph. It's not hidden, it's stolen, and we're here to reclaim it.